What's up, you guys? My name is Wolf. In today's video, we are going to be doing the first ever movie review on Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Now, I know I said that originally I was going to do Avengers Endgame again for a movie review, but eventually I lost interest in doing it, and I decided to stick to the pack and say no spoilers on Endgame. However, I saw Godzilla, King of the Monsters last night. I thought it was very, very cool, so I decided, how about we do a movie review on it? I've never done something like this before, and figured, good idea for Eddie. And a good idea to give it a try. So basically, how I'm going to be doing this is that first I'm going to give you guys a summary of the movie. Then I'm going to explain, some of the cons that I didn't like about the movie. And then I'll go into the pros. So we'll get the bad stuff out of the way first, and then go into the good stuff. So, before we begin, a few things. There will be a spoiler warning, so if you have not seen the movie yet, and you want to go see it, pause the video, go see the movie, and then come back after this. If you have seen the movie, or you honestly don't really care on what's gonna happen, just sit back, relax, and we shall begin. The movie first begins in a flashback sequence about 5 years ago during the San Francisco attack, where we're introduced to a family whose their son, Andrew, was a victim of the attack. 5 years later, the mother, Dr. Emma Russell, and her daughter, Madison, are working for Monarch to basically locate and identify kaiju, determine whether they are a protector or destroyer for the world. There we meet our first kaiju, which is Mothra, an iconic monster. When Mothra hatches from her egg in her larva stage, everybody's freaking out trying to contain it, but Dr. Russell invents this machine called the Orca, which created a frequency that was able to calm Mothra down, and basically it was designed to send out a frequency to other kaiju to have them either destroy or just be calm creatures. Unfortunately, the base gets attacked, and as a result, they captured the doctor and her daughter and take the device. Mothra escapes and goes into a waterfall where she cocoons herself for her final transformation later on in the movie. The husband, Mark, he gets a call from Monarch saying that his wife and daughter have been kidnapped and we need your help. Mark hates kaiju. He blames Godzilla for the death of his son for obvious reasons, and honestly sees he's with humanity, unlike the kaiju need to be destroyed. Why should we even bother with these monsters? And Monarch is in shambles right now because people are basically accusing them you're not telling us everything. You know about more kaiju than you're letting us know. And it's actually somewhat true. They have about 17 bases across the world, each of which containing a specific kaiju. One of them, located all the way in the Arctic region, was a recently discovered one for where they have the monster they codenamed Monster Zero, aka King Ghidorah. So the enemies, they go to this base, and their plan is to release Ghidorah, so they could control him. At first, it looked like Monarch was gonna stop them, but Emma takes the detonator and releases Ghidorah. Godzilla rises up at the Arctic to basically fight Ghidorah. Unfortunately, Ghidorah overpowered the big G. Ghidorah overpowered the big G, and as a result, he won the first round and escaped. Monarch then quickly heads over to Mexico, where they're located in a volcano is Rodan, the fire demon. But on their way there, Emma sends them a message basically telling them why she's doing this. And her reason is because since humanity is going to be the downfall of the Earth, the kaiju are the only ones who can save them. So they're going to release all of them and basically trigger Doomsday, which in her mind sounds good, but to everyone else that is basically messed up, and it encourages everybody else we gotta stop this from happening. We gotta stop the apocalypse, basically. Rodan breaks free, and they lure him away to this hurricane, which is Ghidorah, and the two titans fight each other. Ghidorah easily overpowers Rodan and sends him into the ocean, but Godzilla comes back up and goes for round 2. But the military develops this weapon called the Oxygen Destroyer, Destroyer, and attempts to destroy both kaiju. It has no effect on Ghidorah, but it weakens Godzilla enough to where he has to go down into this area called the Hollow Earth, which is basically his den, and recover so he can go back into the fights. Right, so we quickly learn that Ghidorah then becomes like the new Alpha, because Rodan comes back from the ocean. He goes to Ghidorah and bows to him. At the same time, every kaiju across the world from all the other Monarch bases are free and basically wreaking havoc on the world. Monarch quickly learns that Godzilla is alive and that they have to help him. So they take this nuclear warheads down underneath in the area called Hollow Earth, activate it and give him like a jumpstart. Back up into his feet again. Around this time, Mothra emerges from her cocoon in her final form, and basically joins Godzilla to help fight against the other kaiju. Madison steals the Orca and escapes off into Boston at a football stadium, where she activates the Orca and sends out a powerful signal, stopping the kaiju, but at the same time luring King Ghidorah from Washington and Godzilla all the way to Boston for one final clash. So while Godzilla fights Ghidorah, Mothra jumps in, but Rodan jumps in for a fight in disguise. Okay, so Mothra manages to weaken Rodan with a poison stinger, but as a result, Mothra is weakened in the battle. Ghidorah overpowers Godzilla, but Mothra gives one final stand to save the big G. Sadly, though, Mothra was destroyed, but her life energy transferred to Godzilla. And while the humans bought Godzilla just enough time for him and to regain enough energy, he goes into meltdown mode, aka burning Godzilla, for he basically turned into a walking volcano powered by nuclear energy. And he unleashes this new attack, which is like a shockwave of energy that first burns Ghidorah's wings, then burns his heads, and then finally the last burst almost looked like it completely disintegrated both kaiju. But Godzilla rises up with Ghidorah's final head in his mouth and uses his heat beam to destroy it. Alright, so with Boston in ruins, and some of the kaiju, including Rodan, center around Godzilla, but rather than fighting him, they all bowed, signifying that Godzilla is the new Alpha, the new king of the monsters, as it properly should be. The movie finally ends off in an end credit scene for where the villains escaped and start making a deal with this guy who found one of Ghidorah's heads and basically saying, "We'll take it." So that's a basic summary of the movie. Now we're moving on to, first, we're going to do the cons of the movie, and then we'll do the pros. So, for starters, with one con, the biggest one that I didn't like was the end credits scene. Because to me, it didn't make sense. People have been teasing about, like, for instance, people have been teasing about next year on Godzilla vs. King Kong, and I honestly was expecting to see, like, maybe an Easter egg for where the next kaiju wants to challenge the Alpha to become the new Alpha. Or maybe something different, like one of the big things I was hoping for ever since the first Godzilla movie was to see a teaser for Mechagodzilla. I was really hoping for that. Even though Mechagodzilla isn't quite as popular as Godzilla, he has enough of a high fan base, and is one of the most popular of the Toho series, for where I could totally see Warner Brothers making like Mecha G and turning him into their own style, whether it be like the military thinking like, we need to build a robot to combat against these guys, or be like the first Godzilla movie, like the first Mechagodzilla, where aliens like want to take over the world and like if we're gonna fight Godzilla, we're gonna need one of our own. Or maybe to pull off like a Millennium series Mechagodzilla, where they take the skeleton of like one of the original Godzillas and turn it into a cyborg, which I thought was awesome. Awesome. And since we got a teaser of, like, the Godzilla skeleton from the first movie, I was honestly expecting to see something like that. But since we didn't get that, I honestly wish that the ending at least made more sense, or was something different. And another thing that I didn't really like is how they said how there were 17 kaiju, and they didn't show 17 kaiju and counting, but they didn't show all of them. Now, for obvious reasons, I can see why, because of, like, CGI on doing some of the monsters that they already did is kind of is expensive enough. But I would have loved to have seen, like, some references, at least heard some references of some other popular Godzilla monsters, like Anguirus, or Biolante, Destroya, Gigan, stuff like that. So those would have been very interesting to see, at least, like, either short clips of them, or at least get, like, a reference of them in some way or form. But since we didn't get any of those, it was kind of a letdown on, like, oh man, I wanted to see more monsters fight. Right, or at least get like some more info on who is who. But in general, the movie wasn't entirely that bad. So I felt that the cons didn't really affect so much. I guess another con, and it would mainly apply to everybody else. Not really much to me, but a con that I could see is just, like, not much of a story. Alright, I can see this as both being a pro and a con. Con-wise is that, like, it doesn't really show, like, a whole lot of, like, character development, as well as, like, some of the characters connecting to each other, of how it really touches up with the movie. But at the same time, that's kind of the idea of a Godzilla movie. Because if you think about it, it shows the humans, and it does show, like, some of the relationships, but the story eventually, like, leads back up to the monsters, and how it can impact them. And that's what I liked about it. That's why I saw how it could be a pro for the movie, because, in a way, that's generally of how a Godzilla movie proceeds. So since that was the cons, how about we go on ahead to some of the pros that I liked. So for the first pro that I want to begin with is references to other Godzilla movies. This movie was packed full of them, unlike the first one. For instance, and for starters, with this one, it had some of the original soundtrack remastered for this new movie, such as Godzilla rising up from the ocean and playing his theme, or a new version of Mothra's iconic song with the twins. Which, speaking of which, even though the twins didn't exactly make a scene in the movie, they were referenced a little bit with some of the humans who are on Monarch. So I could see them, so I could see it of if Mothra makes a comeback in, like, a future Godzilla film on bringing the twins, bringing the magic twins into the movie. That would definitely be a very interesting point. Another one was some of the iconic roars. Like, Godzilla still had, like, his signature, like, 2014 roar, like the kind that when you hear it for the first time, it can make your heart jump. But it also referenced, like, some of the classic Godzilla roars, especially from the iconic movies, like Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, Godzilla versus Biolante, versus Destroya, that kind of roar. And when you hear it, it's just like, oh, nice. As well as some other references such as the Oxygen Destroyer from the very first Godzilla movie. I thought that was a very cool reference to bring back on that character. So when I first heard about that, I was just like, ooh, that's cool. Well, granted, it wasn't its iconic, like, container, that you press a button and the cylinder opens up and then everything turns to bone. This thing was a missile that flew straight into the ocean, and when it landed, and it exploded, and basically turned into this green mushroom cloud. Another reference would be on Rodan's location, of how they said how they found him was through, like, a mining operation. In Rodan's first and only solo movie, that was how they found Rodan, is that, like, there was a mining operation going down. They dug deep into the earth until they found, like, this pteranodon egg that had been mutated via radiation and grew ginormous. So that was a cool comeback of how they went with that route. Another idea was of how this movie was kind of a combination of two of them. For starters, the basic idea on having the main kaiju, Godzilla, Mothra, Rodan, and King Ghidorah fight is a reference to Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, which was one of the earlier Godzilla movies featuring all three kaiju fighting together. But back then it was Godzilla, Rodan, and Mothra working together to stop Ghidorah. In this one it was Godzilla and Mothra stopping Ghidorah, and Rodan was pretty much Starscream in the sense of where like he doesn't really have a side. He just more of picks the winning team, and can be kind of a shithead for you. It's just like I hate you. And the fact of how he flew, how he crashed into the ocean, he got shot multiple times. He even got poisoned, and he still came back. It's just like, you're a flying cockroaches, that's what you are. But at least it wasn't Connor, for where, like, you kill him, and then, like, the next day, oh, hello! Oh. But anyways, back to the combination on movies. So, it's Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, and also Godzilla Final Wars. And the idea for where, the world is under attack from all of these kaiju. And these kaiju going around destroying everything. Even though Godzilla didn't, traveled around the world and basically just one-killed everyone, like the boss he is, it still gives that idea on humanity basically has their doomsday, and Godzilla, it's like one monster against one army to save the day. So I thought that was a pretty cool idea, as well as the ending of signifying that he is truly the Alpha. Another thing that I liked, and I don't know how many other people are either fine with it, or still are like, no, this isn't correct, but the design on the monsters. These designs were awesome. I already liked Godzilla's first design, and I saw that they modified his dorsal fins a little bit, so I thought that was pretty cool. The Mothra design, I heard a lot of people didn't really like the design, but honestly, to me, I didn't really care. Because I saw her as both Lava Stage and, of course, was like Moth Stage, and I instantly recognized her. That's Mothra. And then how with this Mothra, it shows, like, a little more articulation, with her movements. I know it was in CGI, but it showed, like, more detailing, as well as like, some of her powers, especially, like, with the stinger on the back, and definitely the wings, of how, like, they mostly glowed, so we didn't see much of the detailing, but I thought that was a pretty cool effect of how we saw with Mothra. With Rodan, I will admit, when I first saw Rodan, I thought it was kind of weird, but then I went past it, and thought, like, I can live with this, I can work with this design. And then when I saw the final product of how, like, my favorite thing about Rodan was his wings, because at the bottom of his wings, they had, like, scorch marks and fire on them, like the wings were on fire. So I thought that was a pretty cool effect to really make him represent the fire demon. So I really thought that was a nice touch to it. Of how like he would soar across the sky, creating sonic booms and windstorms powerful enough to like destroy buildings or push people lost in the wind. So that was a very nice effect. And with Ghidorah, it really had the basic design for Ghidorah, like a golden dragon with 3 long heads, like a Hydra, 2 tails with spikes at the end. And one of my favorite things with Ghidorah, a scene from the movie, was Godzilla ripped one of his heads off earlier in the movie, but after winning the fight, the head grows back, and it actually shows like the regeneration process and everything, like the muscle, the bones, the horns, all the way to where the head is fully complete, like an actual lizard. And I thought, like, that is cool. That is a sweet design compared to the other King Ghidorahs. Because compared to the other ones, every time his head blew up, it was just a stub. Like, the neck would kind of twitch, but otherwise the head would just, like, So to actually see them change it up a bit, showing on like a new addition to Ghidorah, like showing his limbs growing back after a battle, I thought that was very cool. And that the only way to prevent that would be to destroy us for where there's nothing left. Nothing left. And maybe, I don't know for sure, because now that I think about it, maybe because of the head from the movie, maybe he might grow back? But then again, since there's very few left, since there's very little of him left, there's a possibility that Ghidorah might not make a comeback through that. But I also liked it of how, like, he was able to create, like, his own hurricane. With, like, a lightning storm and everything to bring it on with this chaotic storm of how, like, to identify of how he's traveling or what's his lair. So I thought that was a pretty cool design. Again, I don't know how people really feel about some of these monsters designs, but to me, I still recognize them as the monsters they were. I was satisfied with their powers. All in all, I thought they were pretty cool. Another pro that I liked about it, and I think a bunch of other people would say too, is that the monsters had some more screen time. This was a complaint that a lot of people often say with monsters. Like, the monsters don't get enough screen time. We see the humans a lot. But there's a reason for that. Because if the monsters got, like, a lot more screen time than the humans, they'd pretty much be destroying everything, or would either just be, like, roaming around. And I can honestly see that as, for starters, too much CGI to be done, and as well as can be very boring, because since the monsters don't really talk, unlike one movie that was very weird and they never really explained it, but the monsters don't talk, we wouldn't even know, like, what is happening here. And plus, if they got a lot more screen time, they'd pretty much just destroy everything, even though they already did in the movie. To see them, like, having more and more screen time, there'd pretty much just be nothing left. But in this movie, I feel like they balanced it out a bit. With both CGI and as well as screen time for the monsters. In fact, I think Godzilla pretty much got more scenes in this one than he did in the predecessor in 2014. Like, there were more scenes that he appeared, and we got to see, like, some more scenes on, like, some of the other monsters. Granted, they were, like, fairly small, but we got to see some stuff, like this giant mammoth that I think was plant-like, as well as, like, this spider that had this armor roaming around. We even got to see, like, the Muto from the first movie. We got to see a Muto from that, and I think a little reference to Skull Island from Kong. We got a little teaser from that. So I felt like in this movie, the kaiju scenes, as well as the human scenes, balanced it out pretty well. So I felt like that with this, in this case, it all turned out pretty good. Another thing that I liked, and I mentioned it in the summary, the burning Godzilla design. Because as I described him, he was pretty much a walking volcano on nuclear energy, which I thought was very cool. Like, with this guy, when he moved, everything melted in his path, and we can just see, like, like, fire, or, like, going through his body, to his eyes, and his dorsal fin, and then, like, releasing the energy through, like, a shockwave, as sort of like a reference back to like, one of the original Godzillas, of a move that he has for, like, he can generate where he could pretty much generate his energy enough to where he creates, like, a small burst to, like, throw enemies back a bit while he powers up for an attack. I would have liked to see, like, his heat beam turn into, like, the red spiral rain of, like, this massive red energy beam, or maybe to kill Ghidorah, like, the same way how he did in Final War, where he would grab the head, throw it into the sky, release another heat beam, and basically blow him up. But again, another reason why I see why they didn't do that is because something like that would require a lot of CGI to do, and they had already done enough with, like, many of the scenes. So I felt that it was okay. Even though Ghidorah's death wasn't nearly as cool as when Godzilla opened Amuto's mouth and fired a heat beam directly inside of it, it was still pretty cool of how he got rid of Ghidorah. Another good thing about the movie was, like, the human interactions. Because with some of these characters that you can kind of relate to, and how they're, like, really, really important into the movie. And the first one, like, the main character, he was pretty important into the movie. Because obviously his family got impacted by Godzilla. Actually, not Godzilla. Another thing that I like is how the humans felt about the kaiju, because it was really, really mixed. In the first movie, there was kind of that, but at the same time, not too much of it. Because with the first movie, the main character, he was affected by the kaiju, because it was like they took his mom, and then later on took his father. With this one, I can see of like a whole new thing of like why the humans would have sort of mixed feelings of how, like, the main character, he hates the kaiju for taking his son, but then knows that he needs the same monster to stop this other one from destroying the world. While at the same time, with the mother of how, like, she feels that she has to do this, but in a way, it's almost thinking, like, sort of to try and patch up past wounds. And Madison is kind of caught in the middle of it, she at first thinks it's just like, we're doing this to, like, help people, but then when she sees that the monsters are basically destroying everyone, she then changes and goes like, this can't go like this. So she goes off on her own to try and help the guys, like, win this war. And of how with Dr. Serizawa, of how like, he saved Godzilla's life by planting the nuclear warhead in and basically saying, like, goodbye, old friend. I felt that was a pretty cool scene. Which, actually, now that I think about it, actually brings up to a couple of cons that I missed. So, it's almost like fully non-realistic scenes. What I mean by that is that when the team first went into the Arctic, they didn't, they weren't, like, wearing their hoods up, or they weren't wearing hats. And some of them didn't even have gloves on, which, realistically, I don't think that would work. Yeah, you need as much warmth as you can just to travel a few feet in the snow. Another one is because since Godzilla had a lot of radiation, Dr. Serizawa was able to, like, remove his glove and remove his helmet and not get radiation burn before he died. Which realistically, I thought, like, okay, that's a little bit strange. But aside from that, stuff pretty much turned out pretty good. Pretty much realistic. Another pro that I liked is that I rarely see this, is that humans actually getting hurt. Now, I know that in a lot of Godzilla movies, we see the humans, like, getting hurt, but they're more of, like, small scenes. More like small stuff. Because we mainly see, like, in the previous movies, just like the monster just walking through the city, destroying everything, the military coming around, trying to stop the monster, it fails horribly, and the monster retaliates. But there are, like, some Godzilla movies, like giant monsters all out attack. We actually saw people, like, dying, getting hurt, and so on and so forth. Same thing with this one, which I liked about this movie as well as its predecessor. We saw people getting, like, caught in the crossfires, getting nearly killed from this thing. So I felt that it showed a realistic approach of how it would be if a monster roamed around in the city and people were trying to escape, but then getting killed because of this thing's wrath. And finally, the main thing, and, like, the real reason that I wanted to see the movie, some monsters fighting. This battle, I thought, was so much cooler than it was in the first movie. Because with this one, it showed, like, actual combat with, like, Godzilla and Ghidorah. Combat between Rodan and Mothra battling all out. With the Mutos, there was a little bit of that, but not too much of it. With this one, though, it really showed, like, some of the fighting, like, like, with the claws of how Ghidorah could, like, wrap his necks around Godzilla like a snake. Of how Mothra was able to use, like, to use the stinger in her thorax to, like, smack, and to, like, strike, like, in Rodan, and how Rodan was able to use, like, his claws to grab the planes and, like, throw them, and even, like, spin in around, destroying many of the other planes. So I really felt that the monsters, and that the monster fight in this movie was so worth it. That pretty much, if you're one of those people who don't really care if there's a story, you don't really care how it ends, you just want to see some monsters fight, then this is your movie. So, in conclusion, is this a good movie to watch? Yes, I honestly think that this is a good movie, and a movie that you guys can see. Like if you're fans of Godzilla, and you want to see, like, a good monster movie, like, if you want to see some monsters fight, or if you're just looking for a movie to, like, watch just for, like, the fun of it, to, like, see some fighting and stuff, then this will be a movie for you to try. I'm gonna check out. So the movie is officially releasing today. I saw it last night in one of those special midnight showings. But if you guys want to go see Godzilla King of the Monsters, you can check it out in theaters. All in all, I really recommend you check it out. So in conclusion, that does it for this video on, like, movie reviews. I don't know if I'll do more of this. I don't know if I'll do more videos like this in the future. If you guys want me to, feel free to let me know in the comment section below, and I'll consider on doing that for, like, a future series. But anyways, if you guys want to see more videos like this in the future, please subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. It really helps us work on Let's Plays, like our projects, and remember to have some fun. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, hit that like button, comment below what you think, share it with your friends, subscribe to me on YouTube, follow me on Twitch. And here's a hell of the round. Oh! Thank you guys, and I'll see you next time. What do you guys, Moonrises?